Greetings from Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. I'm here at my Airbnb right now. Um, by the way, I apologize for the duck voice. I've been sick for at this point, multiple days, but I'm hanging in there. Um, of course, as always, had to make a video on my travel experiences here. Look at how wretched this shirt looks. This is one of those shirts that it has that bohemian chic thing, right? Like it kind of works in your favor for it to look messy, but there's such a thing as too messy, right? So let me clean up my act a little bit while I'm on camera. I should have done this before, before hitting the record button, but here we are. A little bit of exposed clavicle, won't hurt anybody, right? Am I right, gentlemen? And ladies, that we accept everybody at this channel. Anybody can watch. So yeah, I'm in Hilton Head Island. This is the second leg of the trip. Some of you guys know I love me some Savannah, Georgia, and I have been going once a year now, every autumn for like 3 or 4 years. Hilton Head is about an hour from Savannah, and I always hear about it. So I was like, why not make this trip a little bit different and add a few other stops? So Savannah is next, after Hilton Head Island, and before this, I was in Wilmington, North Carolina. So I drove down from Wilmington. So this video is more about the Carolinas, North and South Carolina. I haven't been to North or South Carolina in years, since 2018. So at the time of this video, 5 years ago. The last time I went, really the only time I've ever been actually to North Carolina is 5 years ago. I went to Asheville, North Carolina, which is like a hippie town, sort of like, it's one of those liberal, hippie, bohemian, whatever you want to call it, towns that you'll find here and there nestled in the South, right? Here and there in the South, there will be these random towns that are very liberal, very this is the word I was looking for, hipster-ish. So Asheville, North Carolina, it's also known for hiking and mountains and scenery. Went there 5 years ago. South Carolina, I've been a few times, but always to the same place, Charleston. And Charleston is another place that people always compare to Savannah, Georgia, because it has that small town, very southern, very authentically like southern charm, southern hospitality, beautiful homes vibe. So I wanted to try something different, right? Wilmington I chose for North Carolina because it's another one of these small towns that I've heard about here and there, and it's actually where they shot One Tree Hill, if you remember that show. Never actually saw it, but another one that I did see, Dawson's Creek. More famously, I think Dawson's Creek was filmed in Wilmington, North Carolina. So I was like, okay, I want that like small southern town vibe, because I'm sure some of you are watching thinking, why didn't you go to Charlotte? Why didn't you go to Raleigh? I feel like southern cities, typically, like these smaller cities like Charlotte and Raleigh and what's another one? Like, I just went to Texas a few weeks ago. For those of you who saw that video, I went to Dallas, I went to Austin, Texas. I feel like these less major cities in America, I tend to get disappointed by them because they tend to be very industrial and just like unimpressive. They're not charming, not like, they don't stimulate me. So I figured if I want to have this southern experience, I should go to these towns that remind me of Savannah, because I really, really like Savannah. I really like that charming, picturesque southern town vibe. Wilmington is cute. I will say there's like a waterfront boardwalk. It's actually on the river called Cape Fear. And it does have that small town vibe, like you walk down the main street and there's all these like little shops, and some of the restaurants were really cute as well. I enjoyed Wilmington. Would I live there? Probably not. Like Savannah, I would live in Savannah. I love Savannah. I would live in Savannah. I'm inspired when I go to Savannah. And I know that a lot of people prefer Charleston. If you're familiar with these places, a lot of people prefer Charleston because it's like a step up from Savannah, I would say, in terms of like upper echelon. Like Charleston feels, it's more preppy. It's more preppy. It's more like country club vibe. Um, yeah, I understand why people prefer Charleston. It feels a bit more uppity. Um, but I like Savannah because of the trees. It's so lush. There's a romantic sort of visual, like to me. Wilmington is not quite on the level of either of these two places, Charleston or Savannah. For example, in terms of like living there, right? I could not, for the life of me, because I'm sick, right? For the life of me, I could not find a place just for like a to-go sandwich. Like a deli that you just walk into, bam, they make you the sandwich, you're on your way. Just a little sandwich shop or place where I can get soup to go. Everything was like a sit-down restaurant, which gives you an idea of like, my point is in saying this is like, you're limited when you're there. It's one of those places that's limited. And I think this is very tricky with American cities and towns in general, that like, it's hard to find that authentic, like a small town or small city that has those like mom and pop shops and stuff, but also will have the bigger attractions that you want to have there. I don't know, let's say like as a local, like a movie theater, a park, right? And then you have these other places, like when I went to San Antonio, Texas, right? Which is like such it's such like a chain city, like convention center, mega hotel. And then it's like all those chain restaurants, like Cheesecake Factory and all those. So it's very tricky, I feel, with American travel. I wonder if those of you, particularly those of you who have traveled a lot outside the States, do you feel that way in America? I feel like in America, it's very difficult to find a place that it has that like perfect medium. And I'm just, I'm very picky and choosy, and like, it's probably also me just being high maintenance, but I have that in Miami. In Miami, you most definitely have all those chains, but you also have places that are local to Miami, and obviously it depends on where in Miami we're talking to, right? But that in itself, that there's so many different neighborhoods in Miami, even just in Miami Beach. But going back to Wilmington, cute town for like a weekend getaway. I'm glad I went. Beautiful homes, by the way. Another place with those beautiful southern homes that you think of when you think of like people who have it going on in the South. But overall, I wouldn't go again. That's how I know that I really like a place, if I would go back in a heartbeat. Like Miami, when I first started coming to Miami in my mid-20s, I was like, I want to come back here. And now I live there, right? Savannah, I go just about every year now for several years. So that's how I know. I enjoyed Wilmington for what it was, but I don't need to go back. I would like to explore somewhere else in North Carolina because I really wanted that authentic Southern experience. Like people had an accent. I love that. When people have an accent and people are so much nicer and more polite. I'll talk about that with guys here on the apps in a second. But I long for that. And maybe I should have gone to, where's Chapel Hill, that university? Like one of these still suburban, like it's a town, not a city, but maybe more major than Wilmington. Maybe that's the mistake I made. Maybe some of you will recommend Charlotte or Raleigh. I don't know. Just from a quick look online, I was not inspired enough to go there. So now I'm in Hilton Head Island, and I'll go back to Wilmington when it comes to my experience with the gay stuff. But Hilton Head Island, this I would not recommend. Like, I don't know what I was thinking coming here. I guess I came here because it's so close to Savannah. I'm very underwhelmed. And again, I'm spoiled because I've been to some pretty amazing beaches domestically and internationally. I mean, I live in Miami, so the Caribbean is right there. The Caribbean is world renowned for amazing beaches. People go to the Caribbean literally right for the ocean. But Hilton Head Island, like, again, I expected a very southern feel, and it is South Carolina after all. But when I was looking for Airbnbs, everything was kind of like part of a resort, which I was like, all right, fine. I'm also here during off season, so I know that makes it kind of unusual. But the resort where I'm staying, I feel like it's borderline creepy. Like, it feels deserted. You come into the resort and then you're kind of like, it's a compound. Like, I could leave, but there's nothing in walking distance. Like, I would have to rent a car. I would have to go, like, even the Ubers, they don't let them in. Even food delivery, they don't let them in unless you pay for their fee to come in. So it's a whole production. Basically, they want you to stay in the resort the whole time. And they have a few bars and restaurants inside, but they're like shitty. Like, they're really shitty food. And I'm not gonna say the resort's name here because I don't need to get sued for defamation. But, being sick right now, all I want is like a good soup, like a good meal with real vegetables. And the only places I can eat here, it's like all bar food, like fries, chicken tenders. So they keep you trapped here, but then they don't even really feed you real food. And then the beach is like mediocre. I will say I like a large sandbar. The sandbar here is vast. So if you're a beach walker like I am myself, I love a long stroll on the beach, then maybe you would like Hilton Head Island. It's just kind of underwhelming for me, and I realized that part of the disconnect for me with Hilton Head Island is that it's a beach town, but it's also a southern town because it's South Carolina. So in terms of identity and like the character of this place, and again, I'm stuck at this resort, so it doesn't give me a better picture of Hilton Head, I guess. But I feel like those two are a juxtaposition, like southern town, right? If we're thinking like a Savannah or Charleston or even Wilmington where I just was, they had that southern town feel. This is a beach tourist resort town, right? And by definition, resort towns never are able to really have a distinct identity outside of like that resort energy. It's like when I went to Turks and Caicos back in May or April, if you guys remember that video, for those of you who watched it, the beautiful Caribbean islands, they lose a lot of their own culture when they just have hotel, hotel, hotel. It becomes like that game Monopoly, right? Where it's just business and you don't really know, you don't really it's not the culture, the real authentic culture or the vibe of the locals is hard to detect because you're just part of this like commercialized entity. So of course, as somebody who lives in a beach town, living in Miami, for me, this is like, I could just stay home, So again, I wish I had picked another place. Listen, I saw it once. I always hear about it when I'm in Savannah. Now I know Hilton Head is not for me. But I would like to explore another place in the South. I mean, I'm trying to think. South Carolina. I've been to Charleston many times. I don't need to go again. I get it. I get what Charleston is like. I wish I'd gone there instead for the same price. I wish I'd hung out in Charleston instead. But I think, what's the capital of South Carolina? I think it's Columbus or Columbia. I think it's Columbus. But see, the fact that I don't even know the name, right? It's probably, again, one of these like tiny cities that's like industrial and not that interesting. So if you guys have any recommendations, I would love at one point to do like a deep southern road trip in like Alabama or Louisiana and see like the bayous, what used to be a part of Creole, Louisiana, but outside of New Orleans. Maybe I'm romanticizing it because based on these small towns, it's like, it's so dull. Like, still nothing has compared to my good old Savannah. Nothing has compared in the South to Savannah. So if you guys have any recommendations, let me know. There's got to be some other towns that I don't know about. Some like really cute towns in North Carolina, in the Carolinas in general, or Virginia maybe. Virginia is a place maybe I should explore. So anyway, let's talk about the gay portion of my travels. So One thing that I noticed in Wilmington when I was walking around, I was like, huh, I don't see many like rainbow flags. The very last day, I saw one flag. And it wasn't exactly the rainbow one. It was the one that's like, there's also, it's like even more inclusive than the rainbow one. There's like a triangle on it. It's like a unity, let's all coexist type of flag. Anyway, I saw that and I walked by a inconspicuous, I think it was a gay bar. It had no rainbow flag or any clear indication that it was a gay or LGBT establishment, except for that I saw a few small posters as I was walking right by it, right outside on the window, of drag queen performances, like Tuesday night is drag night or whatever. And it was not, again, it wasn't in your face, which if I hadn't walked right by it, I would have never known that there was even a bar that does these drag shows. Now, some of you guys know I'm not the biggest fan of drag culture. I don't go to drag shows, but I was like, damn, here's finally an indication that there's some gay presence. And I'm not surprised, right? It's the South, and it's not some major city in the South like Atlanta. So I was curious about that. The South is an interesting place because on the one hand, people are very friendly and more polite, but it is also the Bible Belt, and people are more conservative. And I talked about this in my video about Texas, that I have a weird relationship with this because in Dallas, it was so refreshing to have people just be more put together when they leave their house. I live in Miami where anything goes. People are literally twerking on the street in South Beach, and it's just so tactless and so trashy. And also it's getting more dangerous in Miami. Like, people just do crazy stuff at 2 a.m. Here and there you hear like a report about somebody got shot, like 10 blocks from where I live, I'm not living in a rough area. People just come and start chaos. So there's something refreshing to me about these places where it feels like people are more conservative, like politically, socially, but the positive side to that is that people are more like civilized. And yeah, maybe they're covering stuff up and they're living behind a mask, but there's something nice about walking through a town and things just feel more polished. Of course, I'm aware that I have certain privileges, based on my skin color, based on, I'm not like totally effeminate. So I think about that. I think about like, yeah, maybe I'm comfortable, but that doesn't mean everybody else is feeling comfortable in these places. So Wilmington was interesting because I was like, am I in one of those liberal North Carolina towns like Asheville, or is this more conservative? And I just tried to go off of instinct, and I felt like it was somewhere in the middle. Hilton Head Island, of course, here it's very difficult for me to assess that because it's just a tourist resort destination. So again, hard to nail down a concrete culture of what it's like to actually live here. So anyway, because not much of a conspicuous gay presence, of course I had to check out the apps. I mean, who am I kidding? I check out the apps every time I travel. Was not that impressed by guys in these two towns. But here's what's so interesting to me in these small towns. I get inundated with messages on apps like Grindr in these towns. And that doesn't happen where I live in Miami. It doesn't happen, when I went to New York City in June, and there's a lot more people in New York City, right? So it's like, what is it about these small towns? Is it that people just don't have as much to do, so they spend more time on apps? Also, going back to that more conservative, traditional thing, right? Is it that people here there's more focus on like partnership, companionship, even if it boils down to hookups? Maybe it's a bigger priority here versus, again, New York City, people are so career focused. People are always like competing with each other, thinking about the next step in their professional like journey, right? So I was thinking about that, but it was crazy to me that I would log into Grindr and then log out, check it for a minute, and I would get zzz, that's my phone vibrating, nonstop for like 10 minutes. And I'm not bragging because this doesn't happen in most places, But I've noticed these southern towns, same thing in Dallas, I was getting hit up like crazy. But for the record, I was pretty disappointed by the guys. Like, sometimes I would check my messages and it's like all these guys saying hi, but I don't know what they look like. And I know that's Grindr 101, but I don't know. I feel like when I'm in a place like New York, people know, you know, they're playing chess. They understand okay, if I'm reaching out to you, you should at least know what I look like. You know, there's a certain dance, there's a certain culture, right? To using apps and knowing how to navigate them. But I'm not going to answer some stranger who is, 20 miles away and I have no idea what he looks like. Or even just in general, a guy who's 20 miles away while I'm traveling, I'm probably not gonna meet you. So overall, I enjoy the attention, of course, on these apps, but my conclusion was that most of the lot is not like a match, either for fun or dating. Like, I was just very underwhelmed by the lot. Let's just leave it at that. I feel like when you live in these smaller towns, especially if it's a spread out town, it must be totally normal to hang out with somebody who lives like 50 miles away. Like, it must be common, because I also checked out Bumble here and I went through everybody, both in Wilmington and Hilton Head Island. I went through everybody, literally 50 profiles max. I mean, I guess Bumble is also like the smaller of the apps, right? Tinder, people like Tinder, right? Especially, again, in these smaller towns, you're probably gonna go where there's gonna be the most users on an app, because you know that the odds are against you. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. This is longer than usual, this video, and sorry for my voice again. I hope my voice wasn't too like grating. Is that the word? Grating? Grating. I hope you guys thought this was interesting. If you have any questions about these two places that I just went to, let me know in the comments. And I have a bunch of videos lined up for the rest of the year. Actually, I think I have literally a video a week mapped out for the rest of the year. So I hope you guys stick around and enjoy what's to come.